For headline stories this hour, anger is running high in the Russian city of Kemerovo, where a blaze at a shopping mall has killed 64 people, including many children, on Sunday. Crowds are gathering at the headquarters of the regional government, demanding justice for the victims.
I ran upstairs. Cinema staff didn't let me through. They pushed me. My daughter asked me why no one was saving her. I asked the firemen to do something, but they just stared at me.
Vladimir Putin is in the Siberian city to pay his respects to those killed in the deadly fire. He's promised that those responsible will face justice. Midday here in Moscow this Tuesday, March the 27th. Welcome to RT International. My name's Ewan O'Neill. Russia is mourning the victims of the deadly blaze in the Siberian city of Kemerovo. 64 people, including many children, lost their lives in a huge fire that broke out at a shopping and entertainment complex on Sunday. President Putin, who's in the city, says criminal negligence was to blame for the blaze. Well, anger is running high in the city, where people have gathered at the headquarters of the regional government. They're demanding answers and justice for the victims. More people are expected to rally today, and the crowd has been repeatedly chanting a word: truth. The region has declared 3 days of mourning. When President Putin put aside official business and flew to Siberia, he laid flowers at a makeshift memorial at the shopping centre, also visited survivors at a local hospital, and said that the tragedy brings mixed emotions.
When you hear for the first time how many people died, that children died, you don't just want to cry, you want to scream. But after you hear what's happening here, frankly, you feel very different.
Yeah, somber Vladimir Putin, after having taken in the situation there on the ground in Siberia. Murat Gazdiev has joined us once again. Murat has been with me all morning here in Moscow, just keeping abreast, really, of the scenes that we're seeing. More and more people coming out onto the streets, rallying after having first held a vigil. Mourning and now anger, it seems, is the overwhelming emotion of the day.
Well, there's anguish, there's absolute sadness, you know, what has happened. These people are traumatized, even those that didn't lose their loved ones, but know the feeling, know somebody who has. This is a city that is absolutely devastated, and yet at the same time furious and angry. People that want responsibility, those responsible for this, to be held accountable. They're out there now in their hundreds from the early hours of the morning in front of the city administration, demanding answers, demanding to be kept in the loop, information, the truth, as they say. And Vladimir Putin has said straightforward that, you know, we will punish everybody responsible. He also added that this isn't a war zone. This really shouldn't have happened.
Народу просто хочет, чтобы наказали. Так и будет. Значит, мы с вами не будем делать вот таких выводов. Прямо сейчас назначать виновных. Но вот эти 100 человек следователей отработают по полной программе. Это точно. Даже не сомневаюсь.
Message is simple. Everybody involved in this tragedy, and this borders on a catastrophe, everybody involved will be punished. Heads will roll. Every official that had anything to do with this shopping center, their actions will be evaluated to establish what sort of responsibility and what role they had to play. Everybody will be punished. Vladimir Putin also cited corruption, saying that, you know, if you, unless you give a bribe, you'll never get a permit to run a shopping center or a business. But if you give a bribe, they'll give you a permit for anything, without checking the situation. And here we've got a understand what happened. Vladimir Putin was given a brief which gives us a pretty clear picture of what investigators are thinking, saying so far. The fire itself began as a result of an electronic malfunction or faulty wiring, a short circuit perhaps. Either that or as a result of an open fire. So somebody must have started the fire with a lighter, with matches, taken them to something. The second version, though, is less likely, say investigators. Once the fire took hold, everything that could go wrong went wrong. The fire exits were blocked. They were locked, so there was no getting out through them. The fire alarm system had either broken or been disabled more than a week prior. It had been offline since the 19th, and it was not functional on this day. Then there was a backup alarm system that security, they had to press a button, and everybody would have been notified that something is wrong, get out. But didn't. Security, for whatever reason, they didn't press this button. So first warning anyone had of, you know, something is wrong is a thick wall of smoke rushing towards you. And this smoke, judging by the videos, you know, travels incredibly quickly. The bigger the fire, the faster it travels, and you can't survive in it. You have seconds at best before the body shuts down. So there was that. The rooms, the cinema room, the cinema itself, the screen rooms were locked. So you had cartoons running inside. You had all these children.
Sunday afternoon, packed house.
Exactly. Yeah. You had all these people in there, and usually you have a doorman. You have someone on the door, they check tickets, they let you in.
Yeah.
If somebody comes without a ticket, they say, they turn them around, and they sit there. What happened this time is they had better things to do, obviously. They locked everyone in, and they left. So when the fire starts, and suddenly this room, without any sort of ventilation, serious ventilation, filling up with smoke.
Already dark, of course.
Everybody runs for the exit, and the door won't open. The door won't, and you have, as a result, you have kids calling their mothers, their fathers, begging them for rescue, and then you have children who understand that it's you know, they have seconds left, who understand that there's no rescue coming, who understand that they're going to die, children calling their mothers with a last farewell, saying I love you. I mean, that is absolutely horrendous, and you can understand why these people are out there in Kemerovo right now, why they're protesting, why they're demanding accountability, why they're demanding information as to what led to this. The other thing, of course, is that many of these kids were left there by their parents, who went shopping in the shopping center. This is on the 4th floor, the cinema, the arcade room. They left the children, as is sometimes done with older siblings or whatever. They think, you know, we'll leave them, they'll watch the movie, we'll come back and pick them up.
Later, yeah.
And you have the story of one man. He had 3 daughters, 5 to 11, watching this cartoon. He gets a call. He's on the 1st floor. He went down. He left his children. He's on the 1st floor. He gets a call from his daughter saying, the room is filling up with smoke. Help, Daddy. He runs upstairs, and there's smoke everywhere. He can't breathe. Somebody gives him a wet rag. He tries to brave it to get to the cinema, and he can't do it. He went outside looking to catch firemen. But there you go. There's one story, and there's many of these. So many of the kids texted, called, whatever, telling everyone what was happening, and the calls didn't stop for this father, for example. They kept coming, and eventually they stopped. And that must have been absolutely horrendous for them. The other thing, of course, is that these people demanding answers. It's human psychology. When you suffer a trauma like this, when there's a tragedy that claims so many lives, it is very difficult, especially when you have a stake in this, especially when it's your kids that were in that cinema complex. It's your kids. It's very difficult to tell yourself, you know, I've got to stay calm, I've got to wait for official... I
want to know what happened.
Yeah, of course, you want answers. Straight away, you want answers. And it is absolutely justifiable as well. It is understandable. Nevertheless, that is a huge complex. There's hundreds and hundreds of square meters of collapsed ceiling. It'll take a while. And, you know, as you mentioned earlier, many of the bodies are children. And they're, for lack of a better term, jarred. so it'll take a while to identify them, to bring them all together. People will have to wait. There's no other way out of this. Nevertheless, that is the situation now. 5 people have been detained, arrested for their role in all of this. But given how straightforward and hardline Vladimir Putin has been in this, we can expect many more arrests.
Yeah, it's just a horrendous situation. Murat Gazdiev, for now, thank you very much. Let's actually, if we can, take a look at drone footage, just to give a sense of Murat, how he was speaking about the size of the building, how much damage was done to it, and really help us understand the ferocity of the blaze, the scale of the devastation. The surrounding streets, they're also blocked off. We can see clearly that the roof has collapsed. Inside the building, it's completely burned out. You're talking about 1,600 square meters. And also, of course, right throughout the night, all throughout the day, how emergency teams are working there. And as Murat says, so many, well, charred remains, the dead still being lifted. Murat earlier give us a sense of the personal, of the people who were affected in this very directly. Let's now take a look at that.
For rural youngsters, a visit to the big city is always an adventure. These 12-year-old classmates went to town, and they went bowling, ice skating, to the cinema. It would be their last adventure.
Целый класс был, 11 лет ребятишкам, весь класс был в кинотеатре. Она позвонила по телефону, идет дым, мы никого найти не можем, двери закрыты, и все.
Dozens and dozens dead, but they aren't just numbers. They all had names, lives. All the compensation in the world won't cover their family's loss, especially given that so many of the victims were children. Masha was there with her grandmother. She only turned 10 last week and posted this photo online. Exactly a decade is all she got in this world. Both she and her grandmother perished. Tatiana, an English teacher, she was there with her daughter who survived. Tatiana got her out of the building before hearing that others were still trapped. She went to help rescue who she could, strangers, but she never came back out. You were the best teacher in the world, write her former students. You didn't deserve this. We will all remember you.
4-й этаж, где кинотеатр полностью затемнен, полностью в дыму, все горит, народ весь в панике, дети плачут, страшно.
Little Ratibor pictured here with his mum and dad. She wasn't with them, but imagine her pain when she had to identify the bodies of her child and husband. Not even surviving is easy. Some say he jumped. Others that his father threw him out of the window in a desperate effort to save his little boy before succumbing to the smoke himself. We won't know until Sergei wakes up from his coma, alone. His parents and little sister. There are too many to mention here, but the point is made. A list of names is one thing, but it's only when you get to know them, just a little, that the depth of this tragedy really hits you.
Okay, let's now cross live to Igor Zhdanov, who is in Kemerovo for us. Igor, when we spoke yesterday, you said a very interesting thing, that instead of there being an overwhelming sense of either sadness or anger, which of course there was, what you took away from it was a sense of togetherness, of the city coming out in just joint horror at what was occurring. Today, is that a similar theme?
Yes, this is exactly what is happening. The city, which has been hurt badly, is standing together. They are standing shoulder to shoulder. I mean, for many families here, it's a personal thing. Even those who did not lose any of their kin in this horrific tragedy, they still feel this tragedy on a very personal level, because they knew someone. They know someone who knows someone. So it does feel for everyone here like they've lost really a lot of very close people here. So that's why a lot of people decided to show up to this sporadic meeting. And what they want is they want answers in the first place, because we've talked to many people in this city, and from taxi drivers to bystanders and to those who bring flowers to the vigil. They all believe that the local authorities are lowering down the number of the actual number of dead in the fire. They're saying that the official number is 64, but people here, we've heard numbers ranging from 300 to 500 people. Really staggering accusations, staggering, absolutely outrageous figures. Now, Russia's investigative committee, they have no information to corroborate that, and in fact this is what they've been grilling the city mayor here in front of the region's office. And the mayor has promised that everything is as transparent as it gets. He apologized for the tragedy in front of the citizens, in front of everybody, and even stood on his knees to beg for apology. Now, we've talked in the previous, in the past few minutes, we talked to one of those who decided to join the demonstration here. She actually visited one of the morgues. There are several morgues in this town. She visited one of them, and she said that she actually saw only 64 bodies. So really, but when she tried to take stage, it's sort of an open mic here. When she tried getting this message across to the crowd, she was booed and basically driven away from the stage. This is not the only thing as to why people have gathered here. They want justice. They want answers as to how this tragedy was even possible. How come the fire alarm didn't work? How come the sprinklers didn't work? How come fire exits, the very paths that are meant to lead people to safety, were locked, so people had to break down doors and jump out of the windows? And how come that often security guards were not trained to provide assistance, and were only hampering efforts, were only hampering people from getting out? Have a listen.
I ran upstairs. Cinema staff didn't let me through. They pushed me. My daughter asked me why no one was saving her. I asked the firemen to do something, but they just stared at me.
I ran to the third floor. Firemen stood there doing nothing in front of the door. My daughter told me that she loved me and that she was suffocating. I told her to get down on the floor and begged her not to die.
The children are dear. It isn't a matter of how many are dead now. Unless we change something, hundreds of others could die.
No matter how long we stand here, no matter how loud we shout, no one will hear us.
Well, Vladimir Putin landed here in Kemerovo early morning. The first thing he did, he laid flowers at the vigil, and then he went to the hospital and met with some of the citizens to comfort them. He called what happened on Sunday a result of criminal negligence, and he expressed his personal outrage as to how that was even possible. He said it's not like it's a war zone here. It's not like people are meant or expected to die. It's shopping mall. It was a Sunday, and a lot of families took their kids there, and it was a place that was supposed to be designed to have pathways out. It was designed to get people as quickly out as possible in case of an emergency, but clearly that was not the case, as we've seen. And Vladimir Putin has also promised that the investigation will be as transparent as possible, that everyone, that people will get all the answers as quickly as possible, and basically they will be the first to know about any developments. So people, it looks like the this whole gathering is starting to shrink. The mic has been cut off, not by the organizers. They've wrapped up the meeting, so to speak. Some people are still staying here. Some we see some leaving. So this is coming to a close. We're of course standing by to bring you the latest, both on the atmosphere and on any developments in the investigation. So far, 5 people have been detained. They are being questioned, including the owner of the shopping mall and the fire safety chief, and also the Russian investigative committees questioning one of the security guards, as they believe that it was him who actually switched off on purpose the fire prevention system. That's why it didn't work.
Giving us a sense of a city in mourning this hour from Kemerovo, Igor Zhidanov. Well, the blaze in the Siberian city has been called one of the deadliest in Russia in the past 100 years. Here's a look at how the tragedy unfolded on Sunday.
Где наш папа? Данил, выходим к машине, побежали.
Молодой парень, который сидел с нами, он нас сопровождал, помогал.
Никакой сирены, ничего не звучало.
Она мне звонила в 11 минут 5 последний раз. Сказала, что я не могу выйти. Передай всем, что я их любила. Передай маме, что я их любила, и все.
Так, мужики, сейчас точно задохнемся.
Вечная память им всем.
Это очень большое горе.
Well, we took the opportunity to discuss what occurred with a civil engineering expert. Now, he is of the belief the Kemerovo blaze shows systematic problems with fire safety in shopping malls.
Я становлюсь на колени перед этими людьми.
Да не надо, это... Тихо, тихо, тихо.
Я хочу попросить... Не-не-не, стойте.
Consider that as a national disaster for Russia. Most probably there was a problem with the building code. Most probably there was a problem with the material that they have used over there. And for particularly the areas that the kids are there, we need to have a special repercussion and a special system and the fire exit and that, because kids are not operating like us. This is a systems problem. You could have regulation on the books, but when it comes to the enforcement of regulation and compliance with the regulation, this is where the disparity happens.
Well, residents of Kemerovo have organised a vigil to commemorate the victims of the tragedy. This was the scenes right throughout the night, people paying their respects at the memorial and doing so right up until now, where a rally is ongoing. Murat Gazdiyev joins us live now again on the programme. Murat, we just saw, in fact, a little bit of a mistaken picture on the programme there. What we were showing there, in fact, was the mayor of Kemerovo asking the crowd for forgiveness on his knees. Now, that is indicative, isn't it, of where officials are in the firing line for this. There's so much anger, there's so much frustration, and they're feeling the brunt of it.
Well, to be honest with you, and this is my personal opinion, he did this 2 days too late. 2 days, well, to be honest with you, I think that came 2 days too late. He should have done this earlier. He should have been on his knees from the onset, because as Vladimir Putin comes in, obviously this is as high profile as can be. He says heads will roll, everybody responsible will be punished, but now suddenly you have all these officials who people blamed, who people said had kept them in the dark, had not given them any information. Now you have all these local officials suddenly open, suddenly listening to their constituents. It's unpleasant to talk about this, but there are three factions here. There's the locals who are shocked, traumatized, who are angry, who are sad, and who really want answers, who really want to be kept in the loop, the truth, as they say. Then you have local authorities, including the security company that ran the shopping mall, the management company, the local officials who handed out the permits. Suddenly you have them trying to cover their own hides, trying to protect themselves, given that there's going to be hell to pay for this. There is going to be absolute hell to pay. There's, given how many people died, given how many of them children, given how agonizing their deaths were, how horrific their deaths were. And then you have the central government coming in, having to come in to sort of put these local officials in line, to hold them accountable and responsible. So certainly expect many more arrests, expect this to balloon. And
yeah, in fact, that was the vice governor, not the mayor. But your point stands. It's local officials. They're going to be in the same firing line, aren't they? Exactly, and there will be, as I said, arrests, and this will be used as a platform to crack down on this negligence. Yeah, as well as that. Also, of course, we've heard quite a lot about people coming out to help. Murat, we were showing pictures yesterday of people being injured, people queuing up outside clinics, outside hospitals, wanting to give blood to the injured. They're not alone, because donations have been flooding in for the victims. The Russian Red Cross alone has received 14 million rubles. What's that? $250,000 or so far.
Yesterday, the Russian Red Cross announced a fundraiser to help out those affected by the incident. People have responded extremely well. They are not indifferent to the suffering of others. As of today, we've raised over 14 million rubles from all over Russia, and also from abroad too. We greatly thank those who've contributed.
Okay, just a reminder of our story. The fire in the Winter Cherry shopping centre has claimed the lives of 64 people. They are official figures, many of them children. 6 people we know remain missing. Rescue teams are continuing to work in the burned-out complex in the Siberian city. As that is happening, though, we are seeing people rallying in the city centre, demanding answers from authorities. President Putin is in Kemerovo. He's promised that everyone responsible for the tragedy will be brought to justice. Get more news with me at the top of the hour.